Hello and welcome to the program. It's certainly not cheap getting high-profile witnesses to come testify in court in Nigeria, not when that witness is a former president of the country. Now, former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, is demanding the sum of 1 billion naira to appear in court to testify in a case involving the former spokesperson of his party, Metuh, who, of course, is standing trial for an alleged diversion of 400 million naira in the now infamous 2.2 billion naira arms deal. Metuh has continued to insist that the money which he collected from the office of the National Security Advisor of the former president was actually approved by the president himself for an assignment for their party, the People's Democratic Party, PDP. So he wants the former president and the former National Security Advisor, Sambo Dasuki, to come to court to testify to his account. The court, of course, subpoenaed both men, but that is where the drama actually began from. Everyone had looked forward to the former president and the former National Security Advisor taking to the witness box to testify, but that did not happen. The former president sent his lawyers to tell the judge, Justice Okunabang, that Mr. Metuh would have to cough out 1 billion naira for him to come to court to testify. Now, what's the money for? Well, former President Jonathan says that's how much he needs to cover his travel expense, security costs, feeding, and all that during the trial. As for the former National Security Advisor, Dasuki, he did appear in court, but he said he now suffers from memory loss and can't remember anything. Metuh has told the court he does not have the kind of money the former president is asking for to cover the cost of his coming to testify. What an interesting drama this is turning out to be. Quite interesting. So where does this case go from here? Joining me to talk about this now is Ivan Sufeli, who is a lawyer. I also have Libros Oshoma, a lawyer as well. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
And let me start with you, Libros. Where does this case go from here? I mean, this is quite interesting. You need to pay me 1 billion naira. The other man says, I can't remember anything.
It's a way of saying, look, I don't want to appear. You remember when the former president, General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, was subpoenaed also to appear before Puta panel to testify. He did request for, some outrageous amount also to cover his security, his feeding, and also the fact that he's not too sure of protection for him if he appears, and so that eventually he didn't appear, even though that was a tribunal, a quasi-judicial tribunal, fact-finding. But this is a court of competent jurisdiction, and then even though the law allows it to say, look, you cover the cost of the witness, but the law also is not specific on how much it should be, and so. But for me, I think what basically is playing out here is one witness saying, I'm suffering from memory loss. The other one says, I can't cough out an outrageous amount for me to appear. Basically, meaning I will not appear. I would say not initially, even before the application for 2 billion, 1 billion. The initial response from his team of lawyers was, or some of his associates, was that if he goes, I think they want him to come implicate himself, and that these are interesting times since Metuh is saying, look, I spent this money on the order of Mr. then President, and so if the money was money appropriated for something else, and the president now, the former president, comes to say, no, look, I gave the instruction for it to be spent for a political party, that means the president actually is culpable, for diverting funds meant for purchase of arms for personal use, So I think they are trying to be careful, and so that's why they're asking for, that's outrageous amounts.
Ivan, this is funny, and it's still not funny actually.
Yes.
It says so much about us, and leadership, as a matter of fact.
Yes. I think the leaders or the actors in this drama, they are really telling us that they have the right to display that level of inauspicious tendencies, the same tendencies they used you know, to debase Nigerians while they were in office. Because now if you say you need 1 billion naira to appear in court, just because the law provides that your costs should be taken care of. The intention of the law is not that you become so bogus and reckless in your demands. But now the lawyers, the teams, they have come under that particular provision of the law and capitalized on it.
Because I believe this must have been the advice of a lawyer, so to speak.
Yes, and is a dangerous precedent we're laying down here, okay? Because if you look at it, if it were to be a middle-class person or a common man that, you know, that make that pronouncement, the next thing you will hear is
a warrant.
They will send the police to go and bundle him from wherever he is and force him to court. You understand? But here, because it's a past president, you know, and because it's part of this executive recklessness that we have all through, we've condoned in Nigeria. We should be protesting for this kind of statements. Yeah. But Nigerians will not, because it involves a past president, okay? Yeah. So when the elites, you know, when they begin to act like this, and we the citizens are docile, we were watching them, we're foot dragging, we're not even making any attempt, except for Sarah, that once in a while will issue statements and ask and go to court and say, there's no other institution. No, the masses are docile, people are docile.
Now, the former president saying he needs 1 billion naira, the other man saying he doesn't remember anything at all.
Yeah, well, for the man who said he doesn't remember anything at all, he said that and hinged on the fact that he has gotten several the bail, they saying that the court has ordered that he be granted bail, and the federal government have refused, including even the ECOWAS court has also granted, and the federal government has refused. So to that effect, if they will release him, that is what he said, he will go back to his records. I mean, that is even amenable to the situation, because he couldn't have been very factual and accurate, because he's going to testify in court. You must have accuracy. Okay, one can even condone that, even though there is a level of mischief in it. Okay,
yeah, because I mean,
yes,
you openly said it that
there
look,
is.
He can't remember anything. His long incarceration means he suffered memory loss. And if he suffered memory loss, I mean, I'm looking at the long-term ramification of all of this, you know, as it relates to other cases. Because if somebody can no longer remember anything, what can happen going forward now? What can the court do anything in this case?
You see, the issue here is it's almost like foisting on the court, you know, a helpless situation, where, or like Evans said, if it's, you know, an ordinary man on the streets, even though by the provisions of the rules, you are the accused person is obliged to cover your cost, but it is not for you to say I won't come. So you find out that in most cases the witness is already in court before he begins to ask for costs for, you know, to cover his expenses. But here, because you have, you know, a former president, and also the politics of 2015 had largely divided us, that even pre that time, you know, you had this politics of, look, some persons are untouchable. If you touch this person, will burn down the entire country. And so now, we no longer want to look at it from the perspective of the sanctity of the law. We no longer want to look at it from, you know, the poor view of, you know, getting justice. Because we don't see justice for what it is in Nigeria. We see it from the prism of either ethnicity, religion, or tribe. And so, those people who do not like this government or do not subscribe to the style of this government will be happy that, oh, the man had said, give me 1 billion to appear in court, or would say, look, you can't compel him. If he says he cannot come, there's nothing you can do until that money is paid. But rather, we the people should be, you know, making inquiry.
Can the court do anything in this
situation?
Yes,
the court can
compel him.
Yes, the court can. But the problem here is, if you compel him that he should appear, and he appears,
the money has not been paid,
and he appears, and something happens to him, you also need to look at the political implication of that, because at the end of the day, the people are going to say, yes, their son had been set up to to be destroyed. And that's why all of this played out. The man had requested for money for his protection and nobody provided. And the former president was not given the status. We begin to play politics with it. And that's where the danger is. And so that's why I said it's almost foisting on the court a helpless situation. And what, you know, the global world will be looking at now is that how forceful are our court's pronouncement, how, you know, enforceable are our court's pronouncement. Where a situation like this, the court is almost helpless. You have seen situation where
because tomorrow, I mean, so some other person too could come up to just, you know,
that's the precedent. Sorry, quickly, that's the precedent, because once this is allowed to go, the next thing you invite Liberus Oshoma to come testify. I say, well, I will need 500 million for security, even though I didn't have securities before. If the question now you should be asking is, since the former president left office, has he not visited Abuja for one thing or the other? You know, for seminars, has it cost 1 billion for him to go there? And you know, so these are the questions. So it's, for me, it's mischievous. And then for Sabo Dasuki, quickly, I think he sees this as, you know, a leeway, as an opening for him to press home his demand for his bail, because almost 4 courts have granted him bail, and for reasons best known to federal government, they are still holding, you know, onto him. And now you want him to testify, you know, in a matter where the danger here is the man calling him to testify.
That's the problem. The man calling him to testify.
It's not even the government.
It's not the government. Yeah,
and so he says, look, if he does not testify, then there's a problem in the man's defense.
Yeah, because
you know, to corroborate his defense. If there are no documents to those, and then the man you're asking to come testify and possibly present document, he say, look, I can't assess these things. My memory can't remember everything because I've been incarcerated. I've been incommunicado for 2 years, and so I'm helpless. So, as mischievous as it is, you know, you also need to, legally speaking, you look at that point and say, look, yes, the man, there are some sense in this. But for the former president's position, I still find it very hard to look at, you know,
how bad
look at it from the legal perspective.
Now, how bad does this make Metuh's case? I mean, because if both men are refusing to testify, he called both men to basically come to court to corroborate his story and prove his innocence. But then they're refusing to testify.
Yeah, it
must be a problem for him.
It makes it bad because even the Constitution in section 36, you know, when you read 36 down, the Constitution openly says that you must give the accused person adequate time and facility to prepare for his defense. So if they refuse, the court will still give him time, adequate time and facilities. What is adequate time is not defined by the Constitution. Now,
so there may be no end to this case.
No, there will be an end, definitely. But the mischief in it is what we have to deal with. I mean, our past leaders, you know, they gather somewhere, they call themselves statesmen or something and all that. But you see that their conduct really negates and is inimical to the larger society. Okay, look at Obama. Obama has undertaken...
position of being another statesman.
Yeah, look at Obama. Obama has undertaken to function as a jury.
As a jury.
Okay, in the case, this is a past president of the United States of America, okay, walks freely on the streets. He has undertaken to help the judicial system to function. But here we have past leaders who do not want to help democracy, who do not want to help the judicial system to function, and they do not even want to help the masses to function. So that is the difference between this society and the West. Because when you place demands on past leaders to come and do the needful, they come up with issue of look at give me 1 billion, and is so bad, because what they're asking him to do is not that we're asking you to come so that we incarcerate you. We're asking you to come and make clarification as to how
show leadership.
He was not indicted, he was not arrested. You understand? Just come and show how this thing went so that the court will be better informed in the dispensation of justice. But now, you see the outplay, asking for one, and the lawyers involved. Because I have to say this because lawyers should, because if the rules of professional conduct, section 14, order 14 of that rule says that the lawyer must guide his client between the bounds of the law, within the bounds of the law. And this is a message to lawyers out there that the fact that the law provides that its costs, you understand, should be covered by, does not mean we should begin to create unnecessary, outrageous, inauspicious costs that we know is unattainable.
It's like court.
You understand?
The court awarding cost of 1 billion against a party for failure to attend courts. So, if you don't attend, that we were in court last time, this man, or you're asking for an adjournment, and the lawyer on the other side stands up to say, I flew in all the way from Lagos, and so I'm demanding for a cost of 2 million naira, and then the courts award such cost. It's outrageous. It's the same thing here, to come testify, to come aid justice, you say, I need 1 billion naira
so some
for
of
my
the
security.
Some of
and
the
then the question,
there's something I want you to respond to, because it's something I have seen out there, whereas some people who probably are sympathetic to the former president have said, why should Metuh even bring in the former president into this case? That it's improper, that he basically wants to ridicule the former president, and Metuh had to issue a statement to that effect that that's not the case.
DEJI, you see the issue here. Even I had expected that in all of these trials, that somehow the former president ought also, this government, the present government, ought also at some point invite the former president to come answer.
It appears there's an unseen arrangement.
Yes,
who knows?
exactly.
Not to touch former presidents.
If you remember, if you read Obasanjo's book, My Watch, somewhere he said when he was to hand over power in 1979, that some African leaders called him to say, look, in Africa, we operate a monarchy system of government.
You don't touch the
we don't hand over. Forget this Western democracy. And so I also would want to, with the benefit of that arrangement, I also want to think that there's an unwritten arrangement somewhere that, don't worry, don't touch the former heads, because it's you're going to set a very bad precedent, because if you do, you open, a window for you to be touched also when you leave office, and so to that extent,
and that is not good for us,
because that's not good. It shuts down justice.
Yes, because what is basically happening now, these are people who worked under the former president. The only way, because these are monies that were approved and spent, and so the only defense would be that I didn't just put my hand, dip my hand.
You look at it, all of those who have been accused have always said they got
yes,
approval
because
from the president.
I had the approval of the approving authority.
Yes.
And who is the approving authority? Mr. President, the former president. So how do you now say you shouldn't have dragged him into this when he was the approving authority? And so the other thing that you can do is to tender documents to that effect, to say these were the requests and these were the documents approving those funds for us to spend.
And we should know where the illegality
sets in.
Because once money is appropriated, you see, government don't budget for parties. Party is a private arrangement.
Yeah.
Okay. So now when you spend money budgeted for arms in a different thing, that in itself is illegal. When you spend money that is not budgeted for, that in itself is illegal. You understand? So I think they understand the implication of what transpired. You understand? Because the government was using state funds to fund party activities. You understand? And the problem now is, if you bring the president in, we're going to have more revelations. What we have now, we think we know, really. We don't know. If the president comes up, during cross-examination and all that, where the can is open and the lawyer uses his tact, you understand, to unravel situation, then you see the true color and picture of this. I think the lawyers may have informed him that if you do this, this is what will happen during cross-examination. And that is why he's evasive.
The only way we can say, we can't say you won't come, but the only way we can say, you won't come, is to place a high demand, a high premium.
Unrealistic
demand.
Metuh has openly said he cannot
because
afford
remember
that
also when this investigation started, the president did say that he did not give approval for monies to be spent privately. And so one would have expected, like I said, government ought to have invited him, the investigating officers or agencies ought to have even asked him, even if it means going to him. But also, as the case is now, the court, thank God, the court can move to the locus. The court can adjourn to Bayelsa to sit and take evidence from the former president. Atotweke, if it is very vital. The court can move to the locus.
And that is if the former president says he's available.
That's another thing. And so, let's...
Or is this going to ask for costs to move from his house?
To move the court to his house.
Or should we move the court to his house?
You understand? Because the court is allowed to move to the locus to observe
we will
and
have
take
to wait
evidence.
And see how this goes.
And then
it's quite interesting.
And then quickly, DEJI, also, I think what is happening now is an eye-opener to even the current crop of leaders, that at some point that you are going to account for your days.
And that is why it's
office.
very important that this happens, because if you start with one former president,
yes,
then you've set a precedent.
Yes, you set a precedent.
But the way it's going now is like there's an unwritten rule somewhere that you just don't
because
touch.
all the allegations, everybody is saying, look, I got approval from the approving authority.
It's a very good defense now for anybody.
And nobody has invited the approving authority for questioning. And so when you get to court, the easiest thing to do, this is not the last, because others are going to also, subpoena him to come testify. And he's going to make the same request if, depending on how Justice Okon-Abang handles this, then it will open a defense line for others, or it might just shut that door.
The others are just waiting.
And the lessons learned from it is that the people should understand the unwillingness of our leaders and past leaders. Let's
just take a short break. When we come back, I want us to talk about something else now, about the current government. So we'll take a short break, and when we come back, of course, we'll be looking at the present government's problems, especially as it has to do with, the sacking of the former secretary to the government of the Federation, and of course, the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency. Stay with us. Don't go away. On DEJI360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent.
Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country?
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly.
God forbid that I go to join that panel.
DEJI360, providing clarity to issues.